Hi guys, I'm the owner of the Yellow Spooky channel. Vim gives a brief message to you subscribers of the channels. Quickly, you want to learn how to make money every day on the internet. Find out you can bill from $5 to $10,000 a month at home with the marketing market. Download now our exclusive ebook.
Decided to take my kids and wife for a vacation. We went to visit my in-laws, who have a cabin in the Canadian Rockies. For the first few days, we enjoyed the peace and tranquility of the country and went on a bunch of hikes and bike rides in the forest around the cabin, during which I didn't see anything out of the ordinary in what must have been a 20-mile radius around the home. The cabin is pretty old and runs on a separate generator near the tool shed in the back of the yard, which my father-in-law says has always been temperamental and can create an eerie atmosphere when the lights flicker on and off. So I know better than to be spooked by shadows and bumps in the night. However, one night, around 10 p.m., we were sitting around, about to go to bed, when the lights completely gave out, and the pitch blackness of the countryside meant that we could see literally nothing. Before I could grab the flashlight, I heard a rustling outside the cabin, and something brushed the side of the wall by the living room. I tried to put on a brave face for my kids and told them that it was probably a coyote and they should just go to their room. Although, from the noises it made, it sounded bipedal and quite a bit bigger. Pretty creeped out, I grabbed my flashlight and headed out to the generator, shining the light on the ground to find my way. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw something which terrified me so much, I don't know if I can even find the right words to describe it. I couldn't make it out exactly. All I could see was a creature in my peripheral vision. It looked human and about 6 feet tall with ghost white skin, and I knew it was staring at me. At this point, I was just trying to muster up the courage to look at it, and when I shined the torch at it, I got a good look at the monster. It's so difficult to portray with words, but it looked like a man whose skin was too tight for his body. You could see all of his organs bulging through his skin, and the bones made it look almost like an insect, with the lower arm extending further up the arm and the shin bones doing the same. But what jolted me the most was the fact that it had no face whatsoever, but still had indentations where the eyes should be. The bright light startled the creature, and it hunched over as if about to run. This was all I could see in the brief glimpse I got before I dropped the flashlight in fright, and by the time I picked it up, it had darted into the forest. I ran to the back of the cabin and stayed there for what seemed like forever, making sure it had gone before I went back to the generator. I didn't tell anyone when I was back inside what I had seen, and I don't really know why. I suppose to protect the children, and in case my wife didn't believe me. About a week afterwards, I started having a recurring nightmare. Every night I would dream about that night and wake up in cold sweats, until I finally confessed to my wife about it all and started seeing a therapist to help me with my sleeping. I came across this website looking for other people with similar experiences, and I have trouble finding accounts which match what I saw. I'd love to hear any stories about any people who think they've seen what I saw, or have any experience getting over an encounter with the paranormal.
About 3 years ago, I was driving to my dad's house from across state in Pennsylvania. He lived far out in the country, down a desolate paved road that crossed with an old dirt road, as well as some unused railroad tracks. The entire area was surrounded by deep woods and unused farming fields. There were a couple of dilapidated old houses, an old well, and a few old cemeteries nearby. I arrived at those crossroads I mentioned earlier after being on the road for about 4 hours, and I decided to pull over and relieve myself. I stopped my truck about 60 feet from said crossroad, close to a small farm shed with some old equipment in it. There was a single light bulb on the side of the shed, providing the only source of light in the nearly pitch black darkness of the night. On the opposite side of the road from the shed was a steep drop-off into the ditch. On the other side were some dense woods. As I was peeing in the dark by the shed, I was suddenly overwhelmed by a massive feeling of dread, like someone had just punched me directly in the gut. I had been around these woods all my life, and I used to walk around the area at night as a teenager, and I assure you that I had never felt so scared as I did at that exact moment. I quickly finished up and goaded on my sudden sense of panic. I ran back to my truck, got in and locked the doors. I flicked the headlights on and cracked the engine so badly that you could hear the gears grinding, but all I cared about was getting out of there. As soon as I began to turn back onto the road from the shoulder, my headlights shone over the ditch and picked something up on the other side of the road, about a foot from the asphalt. My stomach immediately sank again. There was something crawling out of the ditch on all fours. It was honkered down like an animal, but its body looked almost human, a human that was attempting to mimic a stalking animal. It didn't look hairy, but it was a uniform color, almost yellow, not yellow like a cougar or a lion, but a sickly yellow that reminded me of jaundiced skin. Its head was shaped like an oval, but had no hair or ears that I could see. The mouth was very, very wide and looked like a thin straight line that extended all the way across the creature's face. It was very, very slightly upturned at the edges like a slight smile. His eyes were very small and beady, just like two black pinpoints. It had no nose or any facial features aside from the mouth and eyes. Since I was around 7 feet from it, I'm certain it wasn't just a person wearing a mask. Even the body sort of seemed wrong, but I can't pinpoint why. I couldn't see feet or hands since there was about a foot of grass at the edge of the road. Whatever it was, I'd say it was about the size of a 12-year-old. As soon as my lights hit it, I could tell by its movements that it had been in the process of slowly creeping up the ditch to the road, and when my lights hit it, it sort of retracted slightly, like it was surprised that it had been discovered. I didn't stick around long enough to see what was going to go down next. I floored the gas and flew all the way to my dad's house and stayed up the entire night, freaked out. The part of the experience that still utterly scares me to this day is that whatever I saw was definitely stalking up that ditch to get me when I had my back turned to it. Otherwise, I can't possibly explain what had triggered those emotions when I stood there in the darkness with my guard completely down. The only thing that came close to that sudden realization of grave danger was when I was nearly struck by a speeding car on a city street many years ago. I don't know what could have happened if I had lingered around for a few minutes longer, but I'd rather not think about it.
This happened one night when I was about 10 years old, around 1996. I'm currently 26 years old, but I remember this night vividly. We had just arrived in Warsaw, Indiana, to visit all of our family members, which consisted of my aunts, uncles, and cousins. My aunt and uncle's house is in the middle of the woods, where the closest gas station would take at least 10 minutes to drive to. I've always thought their house was pretty creepy, but I never had any reasons to justify why I felt this way. By their house, about 50 feet away, was a lake, where we used to go fishing when I was very young. After visiting with my family for about 2 hours, all of the adults decided that they wanted to go to a fancy restaurant and eat, while the younger side of the family, including me, wanted to stay home and play video games, because it was very rare when we were able to see each other. All of the adults agreed that I was old enough to look after all of them, so they allowed us to stay behind. After about an hour of playing video games with my cousins, I realized that I hadn't taken a shower all day because of the long drive to get to Indiana, so I decided to go get cleaned up. After grabbing fresh clothes out of my bag, I told all my cousins to stay in the room until I got back because I was responsible for them. I went into the bathroom and turned on the shower, and was waiting for the water to get hot. This bathroom was one of the weirdest bathrooms I had ever seen. Inside the shower, there was a window that had a perfect view of the lake. Near the window, there was a large air conditioner. After the water had gotten warm enough, I entered the shower and just stood there for about 10 minutes because it felt so good. This is where my night turned terrifying. As I was taking a shower, out of the corner of my eye I saw something move. I had that feeling that someone or something was watching me through the window. The hot water was steaming the window up, so I couldn't really see out of it. I took my hand, and I wiped the steam off the window. What I saw made me drop my washcloth and made me freeze. I saw what looked like a man that was about 7 feet tall, with long hair, standing by the air conditioner right next to the window that led to the shower. I couldn't move a muscle. The man had very long hair which covered his face. He also had long fingers, and his nails looked like they hadn't been cut or cleaned in ages. His skin was a dark yellow color, the kind of yellow you see when you mix brown and yellow together. His eyes were a normal-looking shade of brown, and he was just standing there, holding something and watching me as I took a shower. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I think it looked like a flask because he seemed to be taking sips out of it. As he stood there, I was scared out of my mind, but all I could think about was my cousin's safety and that I needed to get to them. After about 2 minutes, the man got really close to the window and started to smile. His teeth were disgusting as his fingernails. To this day, I can still remember his face as if it had happened yesterday. He looked at me for about 30 seconds with his face pressed against the glass, backed away, and just sat on the air conditioner, drinking whatever was in his hand, staring at me like I was the only thing that existed in the world. The only thing I could hear was his laughter and the water hitting my back from the shower head. I slowly used my left hand, which he couldn't see, to grab the towel off the rack. I quickly threw the towel over the window to hinder his view of me in the bathroom, and I quickly ran to the room where my cousins were, with just my towel on, and told them to get out of the room and go to the back room and lock the door. The back room was the farthest away from the bathroom, and was one of the few doors in the house that had a lock. After they all ran in the room, I got the phone and called 911. I told them that a man was watching me through the window, and I was scared. They said they would be there as soon as they could. After getting off the phone with 911, I reluctantly went back into the bathroom. I slowly took the towel off the window, and to my horror, the man was still there. But he wasn't near my window or on my air conditioner. He was near the lake behind the house. He stared at me for about a minute longer, with a malicious smirk on his face. By this point, I was terrified, but I knew my cousins were safe. Then, like he was being controlled or something, he quickly did a 180-degree turn and walked straight into the lake, his body descending until I could only see the top of his head. Then, nothing. He was gone in a second. I couldn't believe my eyes. This only made me more terrified. I had just watched a man walk right into the lake like it was his home. I figured he would come back up after a minute or so, but after 5 minutes, he never came back up. To this day, I can't explain it. The police came right after that, and they searched the area, but they found nothing. I've never been more terrified since.
This event happened on May 13th of 2006 in San Antonio, Texas. On this day, my friend was having a family celebration in which 2 other guys and I were invited. We had dinner and then decided to spend the night in a tent. Our tent had 5 windows, one right next to me where I was going to go to sleep. About 50 yards from our tent was a chicken coop filled with about 2 dozen chickens. We all fell asleep at around 12:30. One of the other men woke the rest of us up with a scream. I continued to lie down, listening to his story about why he screamed, with my head leaning slightly against the side of the tent. Then, unexpectedly, I was hit in the head with 3 sharp nails. Each of these objects were outside the tent. I got up and looked out the small tent window, only to see a small creature running on 2 feet away from the tent. It ran up to a tree and hid behind it. Then it popped its head out from behind the tree, and I saw 2 big yellow reddish eyes staring directly at me, which made me feel stunned and dazed, like I was in a dream or something. After a couple of minutes of hearing the creature run by the tent over and over again, I realized it was stalking us. I told my friends what I saw, and we decided to make a run for our trucks. One of the guys slowly unzipped the tent, but when it was nearly open, he yelled and fell backwards on top of me. He said it was standing in front of him, staring at him, and then he said the quills on its back went straight up when it saw me. We tried it again, and this time we all darted out of the tent, running full speed. But when we were nearing the trucks, I slipped and fell in some grass. Everyone else ran by me, leaving me behind. I got up and started running again, but this time I could hear the creature charging after me, directly behind me, but I managed to get there and jump in the bed of the truck, and we drove off. The next day we came back for our stuff and found 14 dead chickens, all mutilated with no blood. We also found footprints with 3 toes and claws. And where I got hit in the head up against the tent were 3 claw marks that slashed through the tent and left gashes in my head. I have never spoken of this story until now with anyone besides those friends.
Hey, what's up guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you all for watching to the end of the video, especially if you made it this far. I also wanted to give a special thank you to my friend Joey's Nightmares. He's the one I collaborated with in this video, and I'm going to leave a link to his channel in the description if you guys want to go check him out. He's got some pretty good stuff. He reads true scary stories and creepypastas, and I know how much you guys love those, so be sure to go check him out. Also, if you guys have any constructive criticism, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And if you have any stories that you'd like me to read or that you'd like to send in yourself, links to my social media are in the description below as well. As the last note, I wanted to thank you guys so much for helping me achieve 1,000 subscribers. We shot right past that and we're almost at 1,200 subscribers now. So pretty soon I'm going to be doing a subscriber special video. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of those guessing games where I put in a personal story and then I go, hey guys, which one do you think is my personal story? Guess in the comments below, or something like that. So anyways, you guys can look forward to that. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.